welcome.
So this month our episode isn't live. We've been posting that. And for the reason is because a lot of us will be traveling at the end of the month, and you know, we assume a lot of you will be too. There's a lot of events and people can wait for the holiday. So all right, so let's just begin. Let's get into it. You guys are ready?
Yes.
Okay. So this month we're going to be taking a look into the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So how would you guys define this?
Okay, so the best way to define the extrinsic and intrinsic motivation would be just to point out the differences between them. So in intrinsic motivation, the motivation comes from within yourself. You do something because you enjoy it, you find interest in it, it brings you satisfaction. Whereas in extrinsic motivation, the motivation is coming from the outside, it's from external forces. You do something because you either are seeking a reward or you are fearing punishment.
So would you say that these two types of motivation are like tied into a reward and punishment system? Because that's what it sounds like.
Right, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, at least for the extrinsic motivation part. Extrinsic motivation is 100% relying on the system of reward and punishment. And that's exactly what we want to move away from. And I know that this sounds really contradictory from what we know of parenting and teaching methods. We read all over the internet, like, you know, introduce a reward system to get your children to do things.
Sticker charts,
Right?
student of the week.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that myself in the past.
Absolutely, like just having like pizza parties every time like the kids do a competition. But we have to understand that this can prove to be very problematic when we want to motivate our children intrinsically.
Rakshan, I guess you want, well, I don't understand like why we label it as problematic.
Extrinsic
Extrinsic,
motivation.
can we take a closer look at it?
Yeah,
Or-
so to understand why it's a problem, I guess let's take a closer look at it.
Okay.
So, Layla, you did a good job kind of scratching the surface, but within, it's really so closely linked to not really doing things for yourself. It's more doing things for others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see this translate over, you know, as adults, it's like we worry so much about what other people think, and you know, that's on a different level, but it's all kind of related.
It is.
So you're either doing something because of fame. It depends on who you are. There's fame, there's money, there's reward, good grades,
Right.
or for a child as young as one, for seeking praise.
Yeah.
You know, the moment we get them used to the whole good job, they start doing what naturally they were motivated to do anyway.
Absolutely.
They started doing it now for the good job and not for that innate thing that they were born with. You know, that motivated to do so.
The drive to work.
Exactly. So we're human and we are very susceptible to this. We're very easily influenced to do or not do things because we're always considering what the result is or what that immediate after effect of something will be.
Right. And because we're very social humans, like humans are very social, we're very sensitive to like what others think of us.
But like as a mom or in the classroom, like when do you find yourself doing this, or when can someone find themselves doing it and they don't know they're doing it? Because like you said, it's, you know, we're human. We're gonna naturally like, okay, if you do this, you know, like we'll get this.
Yeah.
So what's a common example you feel that most people do? They fall into this?
You know, before even something just as simple as grades, I'm gonna just put it out.
Okay.
Tests.
And because I feel like that's something that applies to educators and parents, because as educators, you know, we're trying to, you know, get everyone to pass our class with certain numbers, and as parents, that's what we wait for, you know, that end result.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said about that, but we're gonna get into that.
Okay.
Yes.
So the whole idea is to move away from those external influences and work in a more self-based way.
Right.
So that's intrinsic. So intrinsic is self-based.
It is very much
So
self-based.
like how can we sum that up like in a nutshell?
It's very much self-based. It comes from within. your motivating factors for doing something are enjoyment, like personal interest,
Right.
passions, personal satisfaction,
Right.
or just knowing yourself and what your personal skills are,
Right.
and going based off of that,
Right.
and you're working towards a bigger picture,
Yeah.
and that pushes you further and longer
Absolutely.
than something extrinsically would. And it's not to say that that there's no extrinsic rewards or anything like what we call tangible rewards associated with intrinsically motivated work. For example, if I'm very intrinsically motivated to be, I don't know, a fashion designer or something, but because that's been my passion, I've been like into like clothes and fabrics and sewing since I was a kid, I could become the top designer in the world because that passion drove me. So my tangible reward will be that, will be success, will be fame, will be wealth, and all those things. But that's not the primary. That wasn't the primary thing that got me there. You know,
It was her passion, her love for,
which are the intangible rewards.
Right, exactly.
So, like, can you explain that a little bit more? What's intangible rewards?
So basically, it's ultimately just that feeling good, just feeling satisfied and accomplished and at peace. So it's basically all the things that you mentioned, Rakshan, and it's really something that I would think every human being ultimately wants. At the end of the day, we all want that sense of peace and that sense of like.
That's what all those self-help books are about.
Absolutely,
you know, finding your inner peace, your true calling, and your purpose in life.
Absolutely, yes.
And this is what it really speaks to.
So, I just want to cut in real quick. So, okay, so this makes me think of me as an adult, or adults that I know, or you girls. It's like we know ourselves and we know what we like. How can a child know what they like?
Well, children are naturally, like, instinctively driven towards work, and this is why, like, I'm gonna cut into Montessori again. I can't help it.
No, it's
facts
are facts. It's all there.
Right. So Montessori, she believed in something called the prepared environment. This doesn't necessarily have to be the classroom. It can be the home. It's basically the adult preparing the environment that the child is in, and providing them with as many opportunity for like interest-based work, so that you never know like what a child might be interested in, whether it's art or music or mathematics, or they want to develop their language, anything like that. And you just you provide as many options as possible,
and you don't reward them.
Right, exactly. You don't reward them. You don't
the works they choose
to
do,
and you don't punish them for doing it the way that you believe is not right, because a child's right might be an adult's wrong, and vice versa. So it's basically like children
them and see where they go.
Exactly.
Follow the child.
Following the child. Exactly that. And like I was just thinking of an example the other day, like actors and actresses, like they go into the industry because they really love that art. They love acting. They love performing. And I was thinking, oh my God, what if actors and actresses, they just went into acting just to get a Golden Globe or just to get an Oscar? Like it wouldn't
last.
Like they wouldn't last, and we would know, like it wouldn't be genuine. But those actors and actresses that like they genuinely love their art,
exactly.
They're the ones who, at the end of the day, they get that tangible reward of being titled as best actor, best actress, and so forth.
So to be fair though, is it totally normal or acceptable? It isn't. It isn't totally normal or acceptable to see tangible rewards.
I mean, I won't say that it's not acceptable. I mean, we're human. We want nice things. We want to achieve. We relate certain things to success.
Absolutely.
We all want good things in life.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we understand that true happiness comes from within, right? The whole, I hate to keep using money as an example, but just because it's easy
for adults,
and it's very relatable to adults, and we're speaking to adults right now.
Absolutely.
The whole saying money can't buy happiness exists for a reason, right? So you can have all those extrinsic rewards, but until it's satisfying your inner needs, you're not going to achieve that that place of serenity that you want to get to.
Right.
You kind of have to check in again.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, am I actually doing this for an extrinsic reason,
Right.
or am I doing it for
Yeah,
extrinsic?
and so like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. The difference is that when you're intrinsically motivated, the intangible rewards just matter more.
Right.
Like, you know, your
Self-satisfaction.
satisfaction in completing something or accomplishing something is matters more than what you were seeking to kind of get out of it.
Absolutely.
And this is the difference between, for example, you know, let's say you have two kids enter a spelling bee and they're neck and neck and both of them lose out at the very end, and the third child, let's say, wins the award, right?
Right.
This is the difference between child A being, well, you know what? I got into this because I really wanted to get into it and I made it this far, so
And
it's
I
all
like
good.
spelling, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
versus child B who was doing it just for the reward and the emotional meltdown that's
Right.
going to ensue because he or she
That
didn't.
happens so much.
It happens so much because he or she didn't get what she wanted, whether it's something that he or she wanted personally, a pressure that was put on them because
yes.
of parents, like, you know, you gotta win this, you gotta win this, you gotta win this, and
Right.
you're doing it just to win this.
Yeah.
Right.
And that doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's detrimental.
Absolutely.
Because the lasting effect that loss is going to have on that child,
Absolutely.
and it could impair him from maybe trying again or doing other things that challenge him.
Absolutely.
Whereas the one who kind of was just doing it because, hey, he wanted to or she wanted to, like, that child is more likely to go forward and
Yeah.
continue
I can
and
see that
pursue
definitely
something
with
else.
Quran competitions and stuff.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
let me ask you honestly.
No, that's completely true. Yeah.
So let me ask you: is this proven? Like, have there been studies on this, or?
They
Yeah.
have. They
So,
have.
and the studies prove that people who are intrinsically motivated, they're generally more cooperative. They get along well with others. They sustain their interest in that subject for a longer period
That
of
makes
time.
total sense because it doesn't matter how many times they lose or they fail.
It's not tied to that.
Exactly.
Now I know
Wow,
there's a lot of
so
people out there that are going to say, oh, but being competitive is good. It motivates children to be high achievers.
Right.
Yes, to an extent, but when you think this way, you're really, really undermining a child's natural path, which is that of intrinsic motivation. Children aren't born to be extrinsic motivation.
No.
We have been conditioned to train them like lab pets, like lab rats,
Exactly.
because they do all these
That's
scientific studies and they compare humans to behaviors of rats. But
That's so true.
now everyone's coming out and saying, actually, guess what? We're not lab rats, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. So
No.
we take their natural course of being and we
flip
alter it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can't do that because it's not sustainable.
Right.
So that even if a child is extrinsically motivated, how long is she
It's
going to
not
be
gonna last,
motivated
yeah.
for?
Right, exactly.
And those rewards, they change. Like, there's so many variables involved.
Right.
Whereas what you want to do based on your core beliefs, your skills, your passions,
Absolutely.
and just what you think is right, like, that's who you are.
That
And
reminds
that
me,
really
yeah.
doesn't change.
That just reminds me of, like, I feel like when I was in high school not that long ago, like, there was this push to encourage the children to find a job that will pay them well and, like, not like what they're interested in. So it's like, go into this career because you're gonna find a good salary there. And then,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
go into
that's-
that course
they
in
do it-
college.
they do
I mean,
it.
I've been
It's
coming
often,
from like
yeah.
an Indian background. That was the whole reason for the push for medicine.
Right,
I mean, I'm just
right.
gonna put that out there
Right,
because it earns a lucrative salary. And there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with being Indian and going into medicine. If that's what you want to
Right.
do, you absolutely should do it.
Absolutely,
And you should be backed 100%.
Yes.
But I think we've heard enough and we know enough to know about those stories where those children absolutely don't want to do something and they're kind of pressured into it regardless. So there were some really interesting studies where they took a group of children who were like aspiring artists that really enjoy drawing and stuff, and they for one group they kind of just said, all right, go at it,
Go and
okay?
draw.
And then group B, they said, oh, we're gonna pay you, and they ascribe like an extrinsic reward with it.
So your example was a study.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's based on studies. Okay. So the children in group A were more creative and they kept wanting to do it. But the ones who were being paid to, they kind of like withered off and they weren't putting out their best work. And these were kids who were known to be like very artistic and make really good things. And then when they like analyzed their work afterwards, they were saying, what happened? It's that immediate. It's that obvious. It's not just little subtleties.
Absolutely.
And same thing like with little children. Oh, share. Like, you know, the children. So they did the same control group with rewarding children for sharing, or as versus kind of just like saying, you know what, it's a really nice thing to share with your friends, and like walking away. So the ones who were rewarded for sharing, afterwards they realized those children in general were just less inclined to share.
That makes total sense.
And
that's why in Montessori we don't tell the children to share.
We don't. I mean, we model it, and I mean we do encourage, and we talk about you know it, but we can't force a child, or we can't you know, punish them for not doing it, or you know. So
what's an example of intrinsic motivation resulting in high achievements then?
So like there's so many examples, but you can mention the one like
was it Norway?
Yeah.
So whoever follows the Winter Olympics, do you remember earlier this year, I think it was in February?
Yes.
When Norway came in and they kind of just swept up like all these top medals. And so everyone's like, where did Norway come from? Like, what is this about? By the way, they do a lot of things right. It's worth looking into. It's not just this. So the analysis basically is that they don't associate, they eliminate the scoreboard at the early age. So children engage in sports from birth up to like about age 13, 14, which is like approaching that third plane of development. And they're just playing because they're told it's fun, it's good for you, it's teamwork, and they really focus on all those other skills, and they have no clue about who's winning, who's losing, who got how many points. It's not about that. And then eventually, I mean, it's not going to go on like that forever. Eventually, by a certain age, when they've mastered that intrinsic motivation, they introduce the scoreboard, and it's like, oh wow, dang, we're good.
No,
you know?
Total sense.
Whereas our culture is so like,
something.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go on.
I'm just saying, like, well, in stark contrast to over here, where that scoreboard, like that's in that child's face.
Americans are all about statistics, right? But it reminded me of something I read online. I think it was Japan, that they don't test children until 4th grade or 5th grade. So like amazing. Children, they go all the way up until 4th grade having not a single test. And
so then how are their tests? Because they're being introduced to it for the first time, do you know, or no?
Well, they do test them.
Oh, you mean how do they do on the tests?
No, like how are the tests at all? Like at the 4th grade level, and they've never had a test, so how?
They never had a test, but they've been so intrinsically motivated to be high achieving, just by the nature of their work and the nature of the way that they've been educated, that they can answer those questions perfectly fine. Just as good as a kid in America who's been taking standardized tests from kindergarten.
So
you know what I mean? It's not even so much about that format of the test. Oh, but they haven't been exposed to the format.
No, it's not that.
It's just like you either know the answer to this question or you don't.
It's the total opposite of this country, where you're preparing children from pre-K to take standardized assessments and whatnot.
And a lot of teachers always fall back on that, like why standardized testing?
And that's like another extrinsic motivation for teachers that's really negative, because it's like, I'm not teaching material to teach the children. I'm teaching it so that they can pass a test. And it's like, it's just
it's
wrong.
not coming from us naturally. As teachers,
so just recently, I'm sorry, one more point. Singapore, they said they're not going to be like ranking children anymore, like based on their test scores. So they said like that's done. They're completely going like moving that away from their.
And when you hear about Norway, Japan, and Singapore, don't you feel like, why aren't we there?
I absolutely.
Sorry, but we're like, we're behind on so many things.
So then what can we do as adults? Or you have another point?
Yeah, I just want to kind of mention something, because I just want to make it clear that this is just not we're not just saying this. This is what the research has proven.
Shows,
So Alfie Cohn, who specializes in human behavior as well as education, He not only said that intrinsic motivation is the main predictor for long time success and high achievement. Intrinsic.
Right.
And it's not just, oh, you know, extrinsic is no good, whatever. It's actually harmful.
Right.
It's not just that, oh, don't do it. It's like, please don't do it, you know?
Right.
It's bad. It's bad.
And like this is the negatives of like intrinsic motivation that's like reward based. I'm really wondering like what happens when it's punishment based, and like you know what it does to children's like their sight, you know?
So well, punishment actually, they just continue to escalate conflict.
Right.
You know, there's a New York Times article. I want all of you to go out and seek it. It's called What's Better, Rewards and Punishments or Neither? I think it's something along those titles. Just Google it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
So over here, I'm just gonna quote it directly. Okay. It says punishments tend to escalate conflict and they shut down learning. They elicit a fight or flight response, which means that sophisticated thinking in the frontal cortex goes dark and basic defense mechanisms kick in.
That's so messed up.
Punishments make us either rebel, feel shamed or angry, repress our feelings, or figure out how not to get caught.
Wow.
So rewards are the positive choice then, right? Not so fast, it says. Rewards are more like punishment's sneaky twin. Families find them alluring, understandably, because rewards can control a child momentarily.
It's all about control.
Better.
But the effect wears off or it even backfires. For example, how much do I get? A client told us her daughter said one day when asked to pick up her room. You know, getting paid for chores and stuff.
So go clean your room. How much are you gonna pay me?
I think the reason that as parents, and I'm gonna say specifically parents, I'm not gonna say aunts and uncles, educators, whatever, I'm gonna say parents because, you know, we know what it's hard. It's not easy.
You know, they push your
we're
buttons.
looking for, and a lot of times when you're tired and you know you're just done with everything, you're looking for a quick fix.
Absolutely.
And using rewards or punishments is a quick fix because you will see immediate results.
Right.
And you gotta think long term, like you know. And going back, I feel like I say this in every video that we do. You have to think long term. You're not thinking about the here and now.
Right.
You're thinking about
the adult child.
That adult child.
The adult version of your child.
Adult version of your child. We don't want any adult
No, that's not what we want. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So all this has to break that cycle. So then, so then what do we do as adults to help our children or the children that are in our lives to be intrinsically motivated?
Intrinsically motivated. So, being that, you know, we're Montessori educators, and like that's one of the things that really blew me away when I first got my Montessori. Just the natural drive for children to work without being told by the adult or being praised by the adult.
I was like more than just working, like achieving mastery, like just going and going until they master everything.
So like the work is mastery based, and that was another thing that I forgot to mention before, but Montessori, like traditional Montessori classrooms, they tend not to formally assess their children or test them in any way. We assess them by like observing and because each work is made in a way that the child can self-correct and they can achieve mastery on their own. The
children actually, I don't know if these were fixed, but they correct themselves.
Yes.
Like there's a huge difference in having an adult mark up your paper in red pen and give it to you like, oh, here you go. Now go back and fix 5 and 7 versus working with hands-on material where you're like, oh, well, this just isn't working.
This doesn't look right.
This doesn't look right. And the material speaks to you. It's what we call didactic. Exactly,
yes. So Dr. Montessori, she purposely created materials that have that self-correction in the lesson. And so every lesson that we come up with on our own, since then, we have to think about how can we help the child self-correct. That way it keeps them motivated to keep going rather than having to keep hearing an adult say, oh, no, you're not doing it right. That's not how you do it. Or you have to fix this. It's that those interruptions every time, it really, really discourages a child from moving forward. Because you know they're still children. Like we adults, we might be able to take that correction, but they're still learning, and their confidence and egos are still very sensitive.
That's what I was gonna say. It brings down their self-worth.
Right.
Like, oh, I'll never get it then because I'm trying to figure out, and you're telling me it's wrong, but you're not helping me, or you're not allowing me to see where it's wrong.
Absolutely.
And then, oh, I'm not good enough. Forget this. I don't want to do it. Then the tantrums, the throwing things.
And then another powerful tool that we have in the Montessori classroom, other than the didactic materials themselves that are self-correcting and literally speaking to the child.
Right.
The element of multi age grouping,
right?
Because then you might very well have an older child come to a younger one and kind of help them out or guide them.
Yes.
But it becomes more of a collaborative thing. It's still so different than having an adult
honestly,
interfere.
I didn't understand that at first.
Right.
I asked them over and over and over, like, why do you have 3 grades grouped together? Like,
it's so hard. It's hard for a lot of people. It's hard to.
And it looks more difficult. It looks more difficult, but in the reality, it's so much easier, and it mimics the home. Like, you know, it's just so much more helpful to have an older child, or even a child the same age, come up to, you know, one of their peers and say, oh, can I help you with this? Like they'll notice that there's something wrong with the work, and then that child will welcome their friend or peer. Whereas like an adult, it feels kind of unnatural in a way. And Dr. Montessori, she was very against correcting children.
They feel
directly.
Yeah, and they feel very scrutinized when it comes from an adult.
Absolutely.
I feel like that now.
Can I just say something that I think is so funny? She has Dr. Montessori. You know what I'm gonna say? Yeah. Dr. Montessori has so many quotes. Yeah. It's not even forget correcting a child. She's like, don't make eye contact.
Yes.
She's like, if you make eye contact with the child, it's over. Don't even let the child know that you're watching them.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that?
I know, but I have noticed. But could you explain that?
Yes.
A little.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so children are really engrossed in their work. They're really like, you know. I mean, okay, you know what? Think of yourself as an adult. The moment you notice that someone's paying attention to what you're doing,
you mess up. I mess up so bad.
Everything. Yeah, it changes everything.
I mess up so bad. Like that was me as a child. Like if someone was watching me, that's it. I'd be like, you know, I'd shut down. That is so funny. But yeah, and that's how we were trained. We were like, present the lesson, invite the child to do the lesson, and then walk away and just spy on them. Like, don't let them even see you looking.
You have to look, because our job is to observe.
Right.
But you have to be so careful about it. So forget correcting the child.
For sure. Because you're making me remember. I remember it was always with the essays that I used to love, and I always wanted all the time in the world. I'm like, oh, I don't know that topic, but once I was on, I was writing.
Right.
When the teacher went by, and not only, you know, doing the whole, let me look, not only passed me, but was reading my stuff. I was like, I lost my train of thought. I didn't feel creative.
That happens to all of us.
I was so nervous, and I'm like, and then they don't say anything, so that made it worse. I'm like, was it bad or was it good? You read it, might as well tell me.
And that moment, you were intrinsically motivated to keep writing. Yeah. Whereas there's a lot of children out there who they're working and they're like, look, did you see it? Look, like they've been conditioned
to the praise and to the punishment,
to look for that approval, that external, you know, motivation to keep going.
Give me an example of praising. Just you did good or nice work.
No,
neither.
Neither. Praising how?
So let's say like
just acknowledging that they worked hard on it.
Right. They did a drawing, and you just want to point out like the obvious sometimes, like. Oh, I see a new color. Right, I see that you use a new color. Like, you know, can you tell me why? Or, you know, just even if they show you a drawing. Oh, look, teacher. Like, oh, that's really interesting. Can you tell me about it? Just like the good job, or you know, like it comes out naturally
so
from us.
Exactly.
That's training them to
work for the good job.
Right. To work for that
for the pat on the back.
Exactly.
And this goes hand in hand with if we want to raise like a society of workers and doers and good people, they shouldn't be rewarded for things that they should be doing.
Exactly.
Like, you know, praising them for sharing, praising them for helping someone out, and you know, or just being kind. There's a lot of that goes on in the early childhood settings as well, whether it's in school or at home. and we're kind of taking away from that. You know, it's like, all right, no good job you, because you're just being a decent human being, which you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
So we really take away from that, and you know, and then we wonder why children grow up to feel entitled, and
exactly,
you know, in a selfie world with like this, all these egos and everything,
and the behavior charts, and no more behavior charts.
Right? They're always expecting something, right?
Yeah.
They're expecting a reward, or they're
for kindness, like for just like being a human. That would remind you a lot
for
of
being a human,
Another thing is to help the child instead of punish them. Try to set them up for success from the beginning.
Yeah.
So when
this is really important, I would say, for especially for younger children, but also for your 10-year-old, 11-year-old.
Absolutely, because when you punish, you're giving them the message of, I need to make you suffer for what you did. And it's like, why we wouldn't treat adults that way, so why do we think it's okay to do that to our own children? But at the same time, we're like, well, we can't let them get away with that because we don't want to be seen as passive or permissive adults. The good news is that you can hold limits and you can guide your children without punishments. You set them up like from the beginning. You show them what the limits are, what they can do, what they can't do. And like, for instance, instead of saying, you're not playing nicely on the slide, so you're gonna go to timeout. How many times do I have to tell you? Instead, you could say, I can see that you're feeling kind of wild right now. I'm gonna lift you off the slide because it's not safe to play that way. Let's calm down somewhere else. Like that, there's a big difference between the first way and the second way. You're just pointing out to the child like why you're removing them, instead of shaming them and saying, how many times do I have to tell you? You're not doing it right. Like it makes a huge difference.